All right, gentlemen, a very good day to you here from sunny Dubai. A quick update for you on the memo that was released this morning regarding cost index schedules. It does apply basically only to the jet fleets within the Manson Air Group. We were previously using a global fleet-wide universal cost index of 50. We have now pivoted towards a type-specific cost index. For reasons I'll get into in this video. And I also wanted to discuss how we are implementing these cost indexes with regard to the dispatch process, both with Simbrief and eventually PFPX as well. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. So first things first, what is a cost index? Well, I'm not going to go into this entire paragraph, but I'll read the first sentence. The cost index is the ratio of time-related cost of the aircraft operation and the cost of fuel. So essentially what it's saying there is when the cost of the time-related costs are high, for example, the cost of labour, the cost of the cabin crew, the pilots, the maintenance, because remember, maintenance is a time-based thing. The more time you fly, the more maintenance you need. If the cost of that is high, yet the cost of fuel is low, then obviously you want to minimize the time-related costs by flying faster. So you're going to sacrifice burning a bit more fuel to reduce the cost of the time. Vice versa, if the cost of fuel is high, but yet the cost of labor and maintenance, etc., or time-related costs are low, then it makes sense to fly a bit slower. So in very, very simple terms, a higher cost index will schedule a higher speed. Now, what it says in the second paragraph is different airlines operate different cost indexes based on their business models. It's very true. Some airlines, for example, get into fuel hedging. They buy fuel ahead of time at a set price. Some airlines do their maintenance in-house. Some airlines outsource their maintenance. Some airlines are, for example, ACMI carriers, charter operations. They are essentially passing on the cost of the maintenance or if you employ an ACMI carrier, you're paying for the maintenance and insurance, the crew maintenance insurance. So there are lots of variables. There's different business models within the airline industry is basically what I want to say. And that's why there will never be a global cost index for, let's say, a given aircraft type across like every airline. So every airline's going to have a different business model, slightly different infrastructure, which is going to dictate a different cost index. And what I should also point out is this table down here, right? So a cost index of 50 is not the same in a 737 as it is in a 747, right? And the same can be said for A320. Now, if we disregard the cruise speeds or the cruise Mach numbers of these aircraft, even the ranges are different. So if a cost index was a percentage, it's not. But if it were, the range, if you like, the ratio changes because the range is different. So what we're saying here is that on a 737 NG, the range is 0 to 500. Yet in a 747-400, it's 0 to 9,999. So quite clearly, 50 on a 737 is a higher ratio than 50 on a 747. So that's basically what that's saying. And then that's the crux of why I instigated this change towards a fleet-specific cost index. 50 worked well on all the fleets, don't get me wrong, and it's a good starting place. But it's it is fleet specific, and every fleet has a different range. So it makes no sense in reality to use 50 for everything as a blanket rule. It's just not how a real airline would work. So that's basically what we're saying there. Moving down a little bit, so when we're talking about how cost index works with regards to the wind, so some airlines will vary the cost index for wind on a given day. However, so when you're flying the cost index on Boeing fleets at least, you fly the econ speed. The econ speed is a speed based on the cost index, right? And the econ speed will vary based on the wind component. So with a higher headwind component, there will be a higher indicated airspeed or Mach number that is scheduled based on a given cost index. And the same can be said for a tailwind. So for a bigger tailwind, the aircraft is going to fly slower with the tailwind. The reason for that is quite simple. Going back to those fuel-saving economics, you want to minimize the amount of time that you are being subjected to a headwind by flying faster into it, so you're exposed to it for less time, and you want to maximize the benefit of the tailwind. So you want to fly slower with a tailwind so you maximize the benefit of that tailwind. And so cost index is what the important thing here is. Cost index is not a set speed, so it's not like Mach decimal 78. Cost index 50 at this weight is not necessarily Mach decimal 78. It depends on a range of factors, including ISA, temperature, altitude, weight, etc., but also wind component. So it does already take that into account. And while some airlines do change their cost index based on wind, what we're getting into here is that while we would like to be able to give you a different cost index for every day based on the weather changes, it's just not feasible, right? For every single flight, there's going to be a different cost index number, and that might be the case in some real-world airlines, but it's just not something that we have the capacity to do here at the Manson Air Group. So to get to a happy medium in all of this, what we are intending to do is have a fleet-specific cost index. And this should strike a balance between an achievable level of realism, but without overcomplicating the procedures, both for us who are producing the procedures and for our pilots, you guys. Because there's nothing more of a turn-off than you get sitting down to have a nice, enjoyable simulator session and getting caught out by something or being dictated what to do at every step of the way. You kind of want to know what you're doing to a certain extent. You know where you are, so you're happy with it and you enjoy it, get the most out of it, right? And our philosophy here at Manson Air Group has always been from day one based on basically what Verona's philosophy was. So number one aim of the game is to have fun, right? It's not about ultimate realism to the point of it becoming like a chore or a job. You're not doing this, you're not getting paid real money to do this, right? I wish we were, but we're not paying real money. And so I don't, we've got some real world pilots in the group. The last thing we want to do as real world pilots is go to work, do our jobs, follow procedures all day long, and then come back to our simulator and follow a set of procedures for the simulator, whether they're the same or not. We want the freedom that comes with the simulator. The whole point of the simulator is to be able to do things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in real life, to simulate things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to. Now, I appreciate for those of you who are not real-world airline pilots that you're simulating being a real-world airline pilot, and therefore maybe you do want that immersion in the real-world experience. And so what we're trying to do here is strike a really good balance between enjoyment, fun, but also providing that structure and those procedures to provide you, the pilots, with an environment of having realism at your disposal, but yet we're not imposing it on you. You don't have to abide by it to the letter, right? So these are there to aid you to be to be used and abused by you, but not, you don't necessarily have to, right? So I'm making that clear. We're not here to drill in, you must fly this cost index, you must do this, you must taxi at this speed, you must. No, that's not what we're about. But at the same time, we're also saying, look, there's an element of people in the simulating community by its very nature who are in it to simulate to a more realistic degree, and we can provide that too. So this is sort of riding two horses at the same time. I appreciate it may be a bit of a conflicting message, but the main thing is we want to provide realism to those who want it. So the tools will be provided for you. So let's get into it. The new cost index schedule. So released today. Now these figures are based on sort of real world anecdotal figures on real world fleets. So for example, I used to fly the 747 400 freighter. We used cost index 50. So you've got 50 there. And BA used a range of figures, but 90 and others used 90. When we were doing flights for Saudi on the passenger fleet, we would use 90 or long range cruise. So 90 is a good figure for the 400 passenger fleet. And the 747-8 obviously it's a different wing. It's a newer aircraft. It's a newer type. And that's a freighter, by the way, and it just so happens that one of the largest operators of the 747-8F, Atlas Air, used 70, so or range around 70. So, and of course the 777, we've now got experience in the real world of flying that. Again, a range of numbers applying to these, but a common number found on the largest fleet of 777s of the world is 29 and 25, and 787 is very similar to the 77. So these numbers are loose, but they're based on real world data. They've got some substance behind them. They're not like plucked out of the sky, right? Same with the 320-73 figures, right? And we're not just going for like the lowest, cheapest cost figures, because cost indexes, because obviously fuel in the sim is free. It doesn't cost us anything, right? So, but at the same time, for those of you who want to fly a bit of realism, don't want to fly around at Mach decimal nosebleed all the time, this is a sensible speed schedule, right? So these numbers are based on real figures, and that's pretty much it for that. But they'll apply to all the MAG subsidiaries, so Manson Air, Stratus Jet, Verona, and now YM. And one thing that should be pointed out is that diversion fuel is based on a cost index of 0, right? So if you end up diverting, say you've done an approach or maybe 2 approaches, and now you've decided, all right, I need to divert. I need to, let's say we're going into Manston, now I need to divert to Stansted. At that point, when you plan and activate your diversion, it's important then to set your cost index to 0, because maintaining the cost index that you use for your trip will not necessarily guarantee your fuel burn being low enough to be within the scope of what is calculated for your alternate fuel. So do remember that cost index 0 for diverting, and of course oceanic crossings as usual. I mean, it's not always the case these days with some of the random routings and oceanic stuff, but it's good practice, and it's fairly normal practice to fly a fixed max speed for the oceanic crossing portion of the flight, and that can be planned within the flight planning software as well. So, cost index will still apply up until then and may apply after then, but for the oceanic, expect to have a set max speed scheduled by your oceanic clearance. So, apart from that, just to say that this table will be in the Getting Started guide as well. And once again, it should be emphasized that the ultimate decisions regarding the flight planning, fuel strategies, cost index, and cruise speeds remain solely with you, the pilot in command. So this table is really as a guide, as a reference, is what we're suggesting. But if on the day you decide that there's a stonking headwind across the Atlantic and you're 737, or there's a stonking headwind anywhere, and you decide that a lower cost index is necessary to make it, to otherwise you're not going to have enough fuel, or you decide suddenly you need to do a flight quickly and you need a higher cost index. That's completely up to you. We're not telling you that you must absolutely fly these cost indexes, but we're providing you with the tools and a structure to be able to do so. So that's what that's all there for, right? So that's the new memo. So this video is not only just talking about memo, but how we're implementing it. So I've worked pretty hard today on the new dispatch page. So you would have noticed that the website's had maybe you won't have noticed, but the website has had a small update recently on the newest version of VA Base. There's a couple of changes that I didn't implement. There's a UTC clock that can come up in the nav bar. I might add that at a later stage, just as we're moving over to a single website now. The trouble is I have this mag button here, right? So that needs to be got rid of to make room for the clock. So that will come. But otherwise, yeah, there's been some changes under the hood. Notably, the manual PIREP page. It's got a few errors there, so I need to sort that out. But apart from that, the manual PIREP page. So essentially, what we're saying here is that before, if you remember, you had your departure time, your arrival time, and if it went through midnight, then it wouldn't post the PIREP correctly. So now it should. I think these errors are to do with the file upload, but I'll have a look at them later. Anyway, it's not really within the scope of the video. The video is about the cost index and how we've applied it to the dispatch, the dispatcher, Simbrief dispatcher. So as I say, I've put a bit of effort into this today, and it's actually more intelligent than it's ever been before. It picks up a lot more data than it ever has before. So let's go ahead and book a flight just to show you what I'm talking about. So let's say, I don't know, Boeing 738. That's a pretty common one at the moment because it's PMDG, and it's pretty good in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's pick up the 312 to Girona. Girona, I don't know how they say it in Spain. And yeah, let's go with the newest addition to the fleet, Mike Sierra Echo Oscar, dispatch flight, dispatch center. So this has been fixed. I don't know if you realized in the previous iteration, these informations were not coming up. And once again, if you just recap, to fill out this form, it helps to look at this. So first of all, select your aircraft type. Well, first of all, select the airline. First of all, then select the aircraft type, so Boeing 738. Then the registration. Then you've got the location. So here's location, right? You fill that in with Lima Echo Golf Echo. Then the pilot number, and then the date, whether you intend to return or not. So all the information you need to fill out this form is right up here in the banner. So it's pretty helpful. Now, before we get into the dispatcher Simbrief, as you'll see, the remarks section is here, right? What we're using from the remarks section is the preferred alternate. So the preferred alternate is what we've got a preferred alternate for every single destination that we fly to. It's based on data again from the real world that different airlines fly to, use these alternates as their preferred alternates, but also based on the Manston Air operation. So there are some locations such as our bases like Accra, like Manston, like Bristol, like wherever it is in the world. These will be, if they're within the vicinity of the destination, they'll be preferred. Okay, so it is specific to the Manston Air Group operation. So this is one of the data points that I have picked up and imported into the Simbrief dispatcher. So if we go to dispatcher via Simbrief, so this is, as I say, this is the most advanced, most intelligent version of the Simbrief dispatch tool that that has been on the Manson Air Group website to date. Doesn't look very clever, but it is. So it will pre-populate as much as it can for you. In fact, everything that you need. You've got the aircraft ICAO, the Boeing 738. Cost index, here we go. So if we go back to that form, it's fleet specific on the 737, cost index 30, and there we go, cost index 30. But crucially, and this is quite important, if you want to change that, you absolutely can. If you want to put 50, you can. Heck, if you want to put 499, whatever you like, you can still change that. And whatever you change in there will go through to the dispatcher and end up dispatching the flight with that. So, but it will pre-populate with, it will always pre-populate with the default cost index based on the specific fleet within the Manson Air Group flight. Couple of caveats with that. It was slightly more complicated to do the 747-8. I will show you that one, but it is working. And if it's an aircraft that's not in this list, i.e. a prop or an aircraft like the Embraer that doesn't have a cost index, then it will just default to cost index 50, because that's what we were using before and it worked pretty well. So if it can't pick up anything, it will just default to cost index 50. But otherwise, if it knows what this is, the aircraft ICAO, it will automatically give you the correct cost index based on the specific fleet. Great. Moving on. Now, if I skip down to the preferred alternate, as you can see, that has pre-populated. So being able to pick up the remark section within the flight and track down the 4-letter ICAO code for the preferred alternate and pre-populate it there. Now, once again, this is an open field. You can change this. So if you look at the weather at Barcelona, for example, in this case, and you decide today, oh, the weather's really bad there, let's use a different alternate, or for whatever reason you want to nominate a different alternate, you can still go ahead and change that. We're not telling you must use that, but and this, where it says preferred alternate here, yes, this is the company preferred alternate, but this is your preferred alternate. So this is what you're telling Simbrief is what you would prefer as your alternate. If you leave this empty, Simbrief will just give you its own alternate, right? It's going to calculate what it thinks is your best alternate, probably based on fuel. It's whatever the least fuel is for the size of aircraft for a sensible alternate. Otherwise, this is an override, if you like. This is what you're putting in as your preferred alternate. So it will be pre-filled with the company's preferred alternate, but if you want to change that, it's completely up to you. Again, you can change the passenger and cargo figures as usual. The route, again, this is a company route, but if you want to change that, again, up to you. Extra additional fuel. This used to be based on 25 minutes default. Now, 25 minutes is an interesting number, in my opinion, right? So let me get into additional fuel, okay? Most airlines will fly around, or at least produce flight plans for 0 minutes of extra or additional fuel. And this is now what this form defaults to, right? So we're treating it as a real life scenario, okay? But in the virtual world, as I said before, fuel is free. So it doesn't cost us anything to carry a bit of extra fuel, and actually it might give you a few more options. If it all goes Pete Tong, you haven't planned properly, it's always nice to have a little bit of extra fuel in the back pocket. It's all very well in real life. We do our due diligence, we plan, we check the weather ahead, we're keeping on top of things. But sometimes in the sim, you're away, you come back, and suddenly you're overhead the destination, and the weather's gone to shit, basically. So it's nice to have that extra fuel. So 25 minutes, right? So when we talk about fuel, when I talk about fuel, I always like to talk about fuel as a time, not as an amount, not as kilos, right? Because time is a constant across every aircraft type. So whether you're flying a 737, a 757, or a 747, A320, A380, doesn't matter. 25 minutes is 25 minutes. Whereas 1,000 kilograms on an Embraer 190 is nowhere near the same thing as 1,000 kilograms on an A380. So that's why I like to talk about time. Why 25 minutes? Because 25 minutes is a good amount of time to give you what you need to do, to have another go, basically, to do a go around, do the entire circuit, mess around for 5-10 minutes, and then come in and have another approach. Alternatively, you can use that 25 minutes for holding. So I quite like 25 minutes as a starting point if you do need extra fuel. But crucially, what I will say now is that this is now set on 0. So this is what the real world would be. You would have 0 unless the captain, i.e. you, decide that you want to have more. I would do that at this stage. If you do want more fuel than what the flight plan would originally have said, definitely put it in at this stage, because of course adding extra fuel is going to increase your trip burn. So it's important that you take that into account at the planning stage, rather than produce a flight plan and then say, okay, now I want to add 4 tons extra. How much is that 4 tons going to cost you over, say, a 10-hour flight? It's going to cost you quite dearly. So at least if you put in an extra 30 minutes of fuel now, you are going to arrive at the destination with 30 minutes additional fuel. And the flight planning software will take into account any additional fuel burn based on the extra weight that you've taken. So it's a good tool to use this. You've got several options. I think the reason why I've chose 15, 25, 30 and so on, I mean, there's not much point in taking much less than 15, right? You either need nothing or you need something. There's no point in taking 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, you're going to have contingency fuel. 15's probably the smallest amount extra if you want to do some dodging en route, weather dodging. And as you get up 15, 25, 30, 45, 60, I mean, maybe for your VATSIM events, 120, right? So for the cross the pond, yeah, maybe I would take something like 90 or 120 just in case, you're holding for a very long time. But otherwise, these are pretty normal range of figures, right? So that's the extra additional fuel. Departure time, you can choose what time in Zulu that you intend to depart. Only thing that I might do, this is time in UTC. I might put a little UTC clock on this page so that you've got the current time in UTC, so that this can make a bit more sense, But otherwise, yeah, time in UTC, and then override. So if you know that you want a specific runway, in this case out of Munson, you could probably put 28. And then an arrival runway. You don't have to fill this out, but otherwise it's going to calculate the most likely runway based on the wind on the day. So those are optional overrides. Now, what you don't see in this form is something else that it's taking into account. So it's taking into account the call sign. And so before, there used to be a drop-down where you used to select call sign. You used to say, I want my call sign to be Manson Air, Stratus Jet, Verona, or now YAM. So what the form now does, as I say, it's doing more stuff in the background than ever before. It actually looks at this flight number, right? And it sees if the flight number begins with Mike Sierra Echo, then it knows the call sign should be Manson Air. Same with Stratus Jet, STR, Stratus Jet, VRN, Verona, and WYM, YAM. So let's go ahead and dispatch this flight, and I'll show you exactly how it produces the flight plan. So let's have a little dispatch. And you'll see, I'll show you the ATC flight plan, so you'll be able to see the call sign within the ATC flight plan. So here it goes. Very nice. Okay, so from the beginning to the end, we did select 0 extra fuel, so there should be no additional fuel, but if you did, it would be here. You've got your alternate, Barcelona, which we selected as our preferred alternate. Yeah, that's all very good. And then we can come down. Oh, cost index. Yeah, cost index 30. So that's come across nicely. And again, fleet specific. I'll show you a different aircraft later. Let's go up above these maps. You'll see the air traffic control flight plan, this flight plan. And if you look in the remarks section, operator Mike Sierra Echo, remark TCAS 2 equipped, call sign Manston Air. So that works really nicely. So, yeah, it's working nicely. So if I go ahead and close this off, so let's delete this flight. I just want to show you the 7.4. So the 7.4 was a bit tricky because let me go for a Verona 7.4 flight to show you the Verona call sign as well. 8200. So we only got 174 of the Verona 5Y JBO. Dispatch. Dispatch again. Dispatch via Simbrief. Okay, so yeah. So now it's looking for VRN, so it should have call sign Verona, right? And the cost index has changed to 50, which is exactly what it should do for a 747-400. If we look at this, 747-400 freighter, not the passenger, this is the passenger by the way, the freighter should be 50, and it is 50. Now, the reason why this is tricky is B744 is passenger 90, it picks up B744 fine. B7-400 freighter B74F 50, but B747-8, the dash 8, is the same code that we use for the 400 freighter. 8 freighter and 400 freighter share the same code. So I've had to take some more information about the registrations of the dash 8s to be able to tell it, actually you need to disregard this 50 and go with 70, and I'll show you that on the next one. But I'll quickly go ahead and produce this one. Let's put 30 minutes extra and make it a round figure of 1940. Dispatch. So this one should have call sign Verona, cost index 50 and 30 minutes extra fuel with Foxtrot Mike Echo. Echo is the preferred alternate. So here we go. Extra fuel 30 minutes, great. Cost index 50, yes. The alternate Fox Mike Echo Echo. So that's all looking very nice indeed. And down to here, yeah, call sign Verona. VRN, TCAS 2 equipped, call sign Verona. So perfect, that works absolutely perfectly. Now one more flight just to show you that this is working full fine and dandy for the 747-8. So once again, 74F, right? It's the same code. So let's take so Manson Air 1, B74F. So it's looking for these, well, there's 4 actually in the fleet, these registrations. So if I take MSU in this case, it should pre-file or pre-fill with 70 cost index. And there it is, because it knows it's a dash 8 based off the registration. So it's all working very, very nicely. As I say, the only thing I might change now is just add a UTC clock up the top so you know what to set for the departure time. But this departure time is relatively sensible. I mean, it's usually about half an hour in half an hour's time from the current time. So that's a good starting point. So that's the dispatch for Simbrief. I'm not going to go too much into the PFPX stuff today. I'm going to do a separate video for that. But just know that I've also been working on the PFPX aircraft files. So if we go to downloads, other downloads, and it's this file here, Manson Air Group PFPX aircraft pack. So this file has been available and we had it since basically the beginning of the VA, right? It's a long time ago. We're talking 2020. Yeah, back end of 2020, this PFPX file was made. And we've moved on quite a lot since then. We've added aircraft, we've removed aircraft, we've added and removed airlines. We've removed entire airlines since then. And we've got better data as well. So we've got better at what we're doing, basically. And so this version 1 is seriously out of date, especially when you consider we update this route import file every month. So it's about time that this gets updated. I've been going through with a very fine toothpick every single aircraft in our fleet to try and make a decent set of aircraft files for PFPX. So if PFPX is your thing, it will be the same thing. We'll be able to, for every single aircraft, you'll have a cost index pre-programmed in there, and call sign pre-programmed in there, and a whole bunch more. I will show you in another video, but it's going to be great. Okay, yeah, it's really going to be great. So that's it really. Thanks guys. I know I've been droning on a little bit, but it's all interesting stuff. and it's moving the VA forward into a sort of more realistic space. But also, if you, as I say, if you're not interested in this, you can totally switch off and just get on with your life, as we all do. But if you want to have that more sort of immersive experience, we're here to support it and produce that for you, give you the structure that you crave, and this is all part of it, right? So that's it, really. Thanks a lot, guys. Hopefully we should do a mag show sooner or later. It's been a bit hectic these past couple of months. It really has been a busy month for me, and I think the other guys as well. And you can see it even in the PIREPs, right? Less people are flying than usual. Past few weeks. This week's picked up a little bit, but in the couple of weeks gone by, it's been pretty quiet actually. But it happens. Certain times of the year, certain people get busy. Real life comes first. We totally understand that. We totally get behind it, and that's part of the ethos here at Mansonair. All right, thanks guys. We'll speak to you soon. Take care.